everybody, and welcome to another OPP Uniform Recruitment Ask Me Anything session. My name is Réal Lavac. I'm one of the recruiters out in Eastern Region. I'm sitting here today in the nation's capital, and I have with me Constable Marisol Primo, sitting, I believe, in our Prior.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Marisol. How are you?
I am well. How about yourself?
Not too bad. So we're here today to answer some questions. So please feel free to send in your questions as you feel. Si vous avez des questions en français, je peux vous aider à répondre aussi. Alors, n'hésitez pas si vous avez quelque chose en français. I want to thank everybody that has applied and put into the OPP Uniform Recruitment REACH program. It has closed. So if you have not sent it in, unfortunately, the program is closed for now. And keep an eye out on our social media for any upcoming REACH application sessions that will be coming up in the future. We don't have a date yet, so just keep your eyes and ears open for that information as it comes. For those that might not have heard anything yet, just please keep checking your communication, your emails and phone number. Make sure that's open and active and updated. And that information, if you haven't received it, will be coming shortly for those that are accepted into the program. I had a presentation last week for support of Police Week, which we delayed as well at East Region in Smith Falls. Thank you for those that come out for that. And I believe you had an event too, a couple-day event. Hey, Marisol?
Yeah, I had a Police Week event in Renfrew and had a nice turnout for that. It was an information session. And then I spent 2 days at a military second career event in Petawawa as well last week. So really nice getting to interact with folks in person.
Yeah, it's quite nice. It's quite a change to be able to do that more frequently and regularly now. And some of the questions are coming in. So I am going to start off. Somebody's got some questions about filling out their fitness logs. So I'm not sure exactly what their confusion is, but what I'm going to do is just kind of give you a brief lowdown on the fitness log and what we're looking for. So you may or may not be aware, but you have to submit a minimum of 2 weeks of fitness logs with your application, and the logs will continue throughout the whole application process. The only 2 times you would finish or not do your logs is if one, you're told that you're no longer proceeding in the process, or you've actually had your job offer and you're told you can stop doing them. Okay. So for fitness logs, there are different columns. So the first column is your running. We want to know the distance you're running and the time to take for that distance, indoors, outdoors. If you run indoors and not on the treadmill, I'm not sure about you, Marisol, but as soon as I see an indoor run, I assume treadmill. So if you happen to run on an indoor track or loops around the gym, please put a note in there saying that you're running on a track or in the gym, so we know it's not on the treadmill. It's just a little bit different when you're actually running as opposed to the treadmill, so it gives us a better idea of your assessment from that. There's also a spot in there for shuttle run. So if you do your shuttle run, you can put at what level that you reached. The next one is your strength training. We don't need to know how many sets and reps of this and that, whatever, just upper body, lower body, duration, if you went to the gym or your home gym, just something brief like that. There's a column for other activities that you do regularly. There's stress management, and the other activities could be anything. It could be your CrossFit. It could be walking the dog, hiking, anything that's physically related, any sports that you play, you can put that in there. Stress management is important that we're looking for to see how you manage your stress, and positive stress management skills is what we're looking for. Are you getting enough sleep? So how much sleep are you getting? There's a spot for that. And then on the right, there's the pin test. We're looking for a weekly pin test, which encompasses your push-ups, your sit and reach flexibility, your core endurance, and your 2.4 kilometer run. All right. And on the top of the fitness log is a connection to the website that has a scoring matrix for you to calculate your percentage. All right. So that's the fitness logs in entirety. We just want you to fill out what you do for that day. We're not asking you to fill out every single element on every single day. That's not what the log is for. It is just for you to show us what you do in the way of fitness and physical activity. But we like to see a weekly pin test. Maybe every couple of weeks you can do a shuttle run. and then make sure you do enough runs to develop yourself and get some longer distances, because there is a 6 to 10 kilometer run in training. All right, so those are the things that we're looking for regarding the fitness logs.
Okay. And I'll touch on a few questions here that are a little shorter, so I'll grab a few at once. So if you have a driver's license in another province, you can apply. It has to be the equivalent of a G license. So typically in other provinces, that would be a class 5 license. And so, yes, you can still apply to the OPP. And then if you're successful and move to Ontario, then of course at that point you'll need to get an Ontario driver's license. In terms of information sessions, there was a question regarding sessions in Kenora. We don't have any scheduled near Kenora at the moment. What I would suggest is you go to opp.ca/events, and we have a lot of regularly scheduled virtual information sessions every month. And so that's a great way to get engaged virtually, even if you can't make it to an in-person session. And so I would recommend that you check those out for sure. And then there was another question around military members and those in the Canadian Armed Forces. And is there any special entry process involved? And no, you would go through the same process as all of the other recruit applicants. But having said that, you'll have a lot of great information, a lot of great content that you can include in your application. So that would probably be things like your course reports, performance evaluations, conduct sheet, letters of reference from work. So certainly you'll have a lot of transferable skills and experience that you'll be able to include in your application package.
Somebody's asking about timing on regarding their graduation and when to apply to the process. So what I tell people about when to apply, the first thing that comes to mind is apply when you're ready and when you're competitive. So the process takes about 3 to 6 months, depending exactly when you apply and when the next class is. Sometimes timing you don't meet for that next upcoming class, and we have to hold you off a little bit more. So you have to apply when you're competitive, because once you submit your application, one, if you're not competitive enough, you're not going to get very far. So that'll eliminate you from the whole process altogether. But two, that you want to make sure that you're competitive in a way that you can get through the process, that you've done everything you wanted to do. So regarding finishing school, if it's important for you to finish your diploma, your degree, or whatever you want to do, then maybe you hold off and finish that. Okay. If that's something you want to do, completed post-secondary will hold a little bit more weight than somebody who has none or has just started post-secondary. All right. It's an enhancement to your file if it's completed, as opposed to somebody who's just in process. So ultimately, it's the decision is up to you to when to apply. But what I say is that make sure you're competitive through all the elements or all the areas of assessment. Okay. It's not just school. We look at the entire package or portfolio that a candidate presents. So when you're ready and competitive.
Okay. Just catching up on a few here. So just a really quick one. Someone was asking if you need the OACP certificate to apply to the OPP. No, you don't need it to apply to the OPP. If you have obtained it, then certainly include it in your application. But that is not a requirement. We do a lot of the testing ourselves throughout the process. So that the certificate is not a requirement. Someone else was asking if you're moving, should you wait before applying because you'll have a new address at some point? And no, what we ask is that after you've applied, make sure that you correspond with OPP Hire once you have a file number. And that way, when there are changes to anything involving your file, you'll send that to OPP Hire along with your file number, and we'll make sure that we add any updates or changes to your file to make sure that it's as accurate as possible.
I'm going to go through a couple of little short ones here. Experienced officers must be off probation to be able to apply to the OPP. So different services have different lengths of probation. So you have to be off probation and cleared from that before you can apply, and then you can apply. But ultimately, you have enough experience behind you so you can speak to those elements to show that you're able to do the job at that point. Somebody's asking if should they finish police foundations, then if they can choose to work. So post-secondary is not a requirement. It will assist you and enhance your application in the way of competitiveness. But whether you have it or not, you can apply to the OPP or any other municipal police service in Ontario. Okay, that's not a problem there. And as for how many applications we have per year, well, we have several all the time. Several, it's more than several. It's in the thousands. We have many applications. It varies the numbers we have, but they're in the thousands every year. Marisol.
Sure. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of a delay at my end here, so hopefully I'm not interrupting you. Do speaking 3 different languages make you more competitive? It doesn't necessarily make you more competitive, but it is what we would consider a special skill. So if you are a competitive candidate, and you have those language skills, then certainly that's an asset to you in your career. And I think, Constable Levac can speak to that, being fluent in French as well, and working around the Ottawa region, then having other language skills is certainly an asset and makes it a lot easier for you to interact with certain members of the public. So does it make you more competitive? Not necessarily more competitive, but certainly it's something that we look at as a definite asset, and we're always looking at what candidates' special skills are that could be transferable to policing and an asset.
So somebody's asking if they're not successful in the REACH program, would they have more work to do to apply for a provincial constable? And I would suggest that, yes, the demands of the constable application is greater than the REACH application. The best way for you to set up, and this goes for anybody looking and starting off looking at applying, is to do things like attend the session that you're in today here. Also, it was mentioned before, opp.ca/events. There are information sessions, whether in person, virtually. Those are exceptional to listen to. They cover the areas of assessment to find out how you can prepare yourself in all those different areas and make yourself competitive. Ultimately, that's what we're looking, is that balance of a candidate that has made themselves as competitive as they can in all those different elements. All right. It's not one specific category or the other that we're looking for. We're looking for a good balance in all those different areas. So have a look at that. It's on our website. The areas of assessment is on our application in the self-assessment tool that you have to fill out. And that'll give you an idea. Just be honest with yourself while you fill out that self-assessment tool and see where you have to spend a little bit more time and develop. That self-assessment tool is asking you to rate yourself from 1 to 5 and give yourself and you have to give an explanation as to why or how you rate yourself and that score you've given yourself. So be honest. Don't be too hard on yourself, but don't be too easy either. Just be honest, and you figure out where you need to assess or where to develop, and then you can move on from there with the process.
Question around the medical testing. And so when it comes to the medical testing, that happens after an individual is successful in the interview. We consider it part of the background package. So the medical testing is not done by an OPP doctor. We don't have a doctor that does that. So that is something where the applicant has to set up an appointment with the doctor. And if you go on our website, opp.ca/careers, there is a medical questionnaire, which speaks to some of the medical aspects as well as the vision and hearing components, which are also part of the medical. So to get a little bit more information about that, you can certainly check it out on our website.
Okay. So a short one and a little longer one. So is there any certificate required like the OECP? So for the OPP, you are not required to get any of those OECP certificates. You still can do it if you choose to. It'll be an enhancement to your file, but is not required. Okay, and there's no longer any of the older applicant testing services, the ATS, but there is a certificate out there. It's just not required with the OPP. Some services require it. We do not. So somebody's asking how much emphasis is put on grades from high school and university if they've been in the work for 5 years or more. So we do look at grades because the term that we use, that what we're looking for is your ability to learn. Can you learn and develop that way? Are you teachable? Okay. Can we coach you? Can you take that information? So we use the grades to help assess that ability to learn. So we balance that off also with any work experience you've had and how you can learn there. It could be in your volunteering work and learning different programs, whatever, depending what your volunteer work is. We used to put a really heavy emphasis on grades, and we've moved on to that ability to learn, which is a broader term than just relying on grades itself. But it does give us an idea of who you are and what your learning is like. That being said, maybe in high school you had really poor grades, but then you matured, and in post-secondary you raised your grades. Or maybe you just had high school and you never did anything else. So maybe it would be benefit to get some grades to show that you do have that ability. And we look at that ability to learn because the Ontario Police College requires 75% to pass in all your courses, not an overall average. It has to be 75 per class to be able to pass. So there is a little bit of emphasis put on grades because we want to see if you have that ability, but we will also look at how you can learn, and we'll get that. If you've been in the workplace for a number of years, we'll look at different trainings you might have taken there. The first example that comes to mind is our military members and all the different training that they have and those opportunities there. So maybe they've joined the military at a young age, but we can address that ability to learn through all that training that they've done that way. So anything that you have, any training, certificates, any courses to show that ability to learn, we look at that, as well as speaking to supervisors. It could be teachers, people that mentor you and taught you different things in different aspects of your life and in your portfolio.
Question here from experienced police officer, and asking about what is the importance of volunteer work in the experienced police officer process. And we still do look at volunteerism in the experienced police officer competition. Certainly, we know at that point you're juggling shift work, full-time work with maybe having a family and all of those things. So it does become a little more challenging. But we are looking at still that component as being something really important. And then with respect to maybe why certain experienced police officers might not be successful in our process, it is really competitive, and we have more applicants than we sometimes have seats in our classes, and so it's really competitive, and we're looking at everything from leadership experience to frontline experience. That's really important because that's what you're being hired for, is a frontline position. So it's really competitive. I recommend for any experienced officers thinking of applying, go to opp.ca/careers, look under EPO to get a sense of what the areas of assessment are. And it doesn't hurt to watch an information session as well, because a lot of that we cover in information sessions would apply to an experienced officer too.
So the question here, I'll explain in two different ways depending how it's meant. Is there any source to go directly to school? So if you're talking about post-secondary police foundations, then you have to apply to individual school and programs from there. If you're speaking to the Ontario Police College where you do your police training, no, there's no way of going there directly in Ontario. In Ontario, you have to be hired by a police service, and that service will send you to the Ontario Police College for your formal training. The province of Quebec is a little bit different. Here in Ottawa, I get a lot of candidates coming in where you have to do a police technology program there, which is 3 years. And then you apply and put yourself through Quebec's version of the police college, École nationale de police du Québec. And then with that certificate, you can apply to the police services in the province of Quebec. But for here in Ontario, You have to be hired as a constable, and then that service will send you to OPC.
And a question around finances, and we do look at finances in terms of lifestyle and life experience. We cover that off in our areas of assessment. And so if someone is successful in the interview process and moves on to the background, then we do look at finances. The question here is how much pressure is put on having savings, that sort of thing. And really what we're looking at is, are you meeting your financial commitments? Are you able to pay your bills? Are you paying them on time? Do you have a lot of NSF transactions, insufficient funds, that sort of thing? Are you being contacted by collections? So we recognize that, when you're going to school and have those kinds of bills and mortgage and kids, you may not have a lot of savings, but we do expect that you're meeting your financial obligations. That's really what we're looking at there.
So somebody's asking the question is, could they be sent to HSD as their first attachment? So my answer to that is yes. And now I'm going to open the door a little bit to preferred postings. Should you be invited to an interview, you will be asked to provide 6 preferred postings of where you would like to go. The OPP tries really hard to place candidates in one of their 6 choices. About 87% of candidates do get one of their 6. However, the little caveat of that is that we must meet the needs of the organization at the time that we offer employment. There are not openings at every detachment across the province every time that we have a class to fill. So that's why that's not exactly 100%, because we have to fill needs at detachments sometimes outside those 6 preferred postings. So can you be placed in HSD? Absolutely. If you want to go to HSD, that could be. You might be offered something out of your 6. You can choose to accept that or not. But also the other thing that you can look at, this is going to be the other extreme from HSD down to up north. We have duration postings in the north of the province, anywhere from 2 years to 6 years. And if you want to put those up, sometimes those positions come up a little bit more frequently because there's quite a bit of turnaround in the north. However, putting a north duration posting or even 6 of them will not make you more competitive. There may be a chance that you get it compared to other detachments, depending on the openings, but it will not make you more competitive. So make sure that you have a good, thought out, educated choice in those 6 preferred postings. But we do try hard to get you one of those 6 as best that we can based on the needs of the organization.
I'll grab 2 here that are fairly quick, I think. So does the OPP college offer free tuition? So there's 2 things. When you're hired by the OPP and you start training, the OPP pays you. So you're on salary from your first day of training. And then the other great thing is that recently the Ontario Police College removed their tuition fee. So there used to be a tuition fee associated with going to the police college in Aylmer. That no longer exists. So really there is no tuition fees. And as I say, once you're hired by the OPP and start your training, you're actually on salary. So that's a nice thing as well. Another question here, if you're working as a security guard and a security supervisor, should you pursue other jobs like corrections before applying to the OPP? And that really depends on you doing your own self-assessment and looking at whether you feel that you are competitive at this time. And so that might mean watching one of our information sessions where we really go through those areas of assessment in a lot more detail than we do here. It might be an opportunity for you to look on our website and do the self-assessment tool where we go through all those areas of assessment and you can objectively assess yourself. You may be competitive enough at this point. We do have security security guards that apply to the OPP and are successful. It really comes down to what your experience is, how good you are at articulating that, and you'll have to make that decision for yourself, because certainly if you apply and you're unsuccessful, then you have to wait for a year before you reapply.
Okay. So a couple of little quick ones here. Looks like somebody's applied. I think it's meant to be the communication operator, and I don't know how long they expect to hear back. I cannot answer that. That's not part of our process. We're strictly here with uniform recruitment. We don't do any of the hiring for the communication centers. You'd have to touch base with them to find out from there. Somebody's asking when the next auxiliary class. I don't know when the next auxiliary class is either. That's outside of our scope as well. You'd have to touch base with the auxiliary program office to find out, or contact your local detachment that has an auxiliary unit, and they might have a better idea from there. So here's a question I'll answer a little bit more. Any other benefits as to why the OPP is a better option than any other release service? So I think the one thing to look at with the OPP is that the way we do business, frontline officers often conduct complete investigations. We do have crime units for something that's larger and more detailed, but for many type of regular kind of occurrences, like different thefts and domestics, that doesn't involve long and lengthy investigations, the officers will do it, as opposed to some of the municipal services. They'll go in, make sure that everybody's safe, do an arrest if necessary. They might lodge a prisoner, and they'll turn over that person, that investigation, to investigative unit. Whereas with us, with Frontline, you get the opportunity to investigate further, do your Crown brief once you've spoken to all your witnesses, and if you're laying charges, and then bring that to court and testify from there. So you get to see it from beginning to end in the whole process. So that's a very big benefit with the OPP in building some of those skills that you have. And we're a large organization. We have a lot of opportunities across the province, particularly if you're willing to move around the province. Sometimes those openings in different specialty units or other detachments, if you want to move, you have that benefit, that opportunity from there. So it opens a lot of doors. We're a very well-respected and professional organization. And the organization has treated me really well through the years. So I have no complaints. I can't tell you which organization to choose from, but I'd kind of tell you to pick the OPP because that's what I do.
And I'll just cover off a few questions here around the psychological component. A few questions came in around the same time. So someone was asking if special constables have to do the same psychological stage as regular constables. And yes, so for example, special constables are auxiliary members. They all have to go through the psychological component, that evaluation stage. In terms of what to expect, really, you can expect to do a lot of those bubble questionnaires where you're answering a whole bunch of questions about yourself. There will be an interview as well. And all I can say there is to be as honest as possible. Really, this is a way of getting to know you. And the best way to score well is to be as honest as possible. And then someone was asking if they've been unsuccessful at the psychological evaluation stage in the past, can they apply to other police services? And if a year has gone by, you can reapply and you can apply to the OPP, and that psychological testing stage will be done again with us. So it's possible that you'll have a different result. We really can't predict that. But certainly if you've been unsuccessful with someone else, after a year, you can apply with us.
Somebody's asking about finances. So they're saying that they're a little bit behind the curve as they described it, and how much do we look at savings and all that thing. So for finances, the first thing that comes up is that we have to look at, are you living within your means? So in other words, life changes as you begin to living on your own. and getting out into the world and getting married and have children and build a family, there's a little higher debt load in beginning either your rent, or if you're starting a mortgage, you might have a vehicle or two within yourself and whoever else in the house. Kids are expensive. But if you're living within your means and have acceptable amount of debt, okay, we can look at that. The problem runs into if you're really struggling and you're overdebted and maybe have some negative financial history, like some consolidation of debt because you've put yourself behind the eight ball. Maybe collections has come knocking on your door recently. Are you borrowing from your credit card to pay off a loan? That kind of thing. So when you get into those things, that might harm you financially within your application. It adds a lot of stressors in a person's life. But we do look at the entirety of things. I keep mentioning that because it's very important. As well as finance is an important part of that lifestyle and responsibility, we will compare it to everything else within your application as well.
A question around it: if you're a military police officer, can you get hired as an experienced officer? And no, for the military police, you do have to apply as a new recruit and go through all of the recruit training, the same as all of the other new recruits. And then another quick one around police foundations and is it worth it to apply? And it's a good program. What we tell people is when it comes to post-secondary education is choose something that you're interested in, that you're likely to do well in and potentially find employment afterward. All of those things will make you more competitive when you apply to the OPP. Having said that, we also tell people that you don't have to seek post-secondary education in the police field. We have people who apply to the OPP from all different backgrounds, both academic and employment backgrounds. And so really follow what speaks to you and really do your best both academically and employment wise. And that will make you more competitive when it does come time to apply.
Okay. Somebody's asking if police foundations is really worth it to apply. So what I tell people regarding education is, so there's two things. One, take something that you're interested in. If this is the career that you want to do and you're interested in learning about it, go ahead and take it. If there's other interests that you have, because there's a lot of other courses and programs out there that you can take that would be transferable skills into policing, then take those programs. We're not looking solely for people that have police foundations or criminology, that kind of thing. We're looking for a wide range of different expertise and trainings and backgrounds from our candidates so that we don't have the same one and only profile for applicants. We won't be able to serve the province and our organization properly if everybody comes in with the same mold. So for education, take something that is of interest to you. Take something ideally that's transferable to policing, but you'd be surprised at what can be transferable to policing. It doesn't always have to be security related itself. Anything where you gain experience and you end up teaching is a transferable skills. If you have anything in the way of accounting, well, we have fraud investigations. So that's a transferable skill. So there's a lot of different things that you can do that will be of benefit to your application and to your hiring process. My thought escaped me. I will jump back to it if it comes back to me. But basically, just make sure that the biggest thing we're looking for is that ability to learn. So make sure that you concentrate, apply yourself, and get a good experience and good grades, and potentially some references for your application process from there.
There's a question around applying to other municipal agencies while applying to the OPP. And yes, you can do that. We don't hold that against you. We know that when you're applying, you want to be successful as a police officer. You should be able to articulate, though, why you're interested in the OPP. If we get a sense that, you're just throwing a really large net and don't know anything about this organization and don't really have a sense of why you want to be a part of this team, that's something that we're going to look at, because we really want those dedicated individuals that bring something to this organization and will stay with us for the long term. But certainly you can apply to other police services. And then the question was, could you apply at the same time to the OPP Special Constable and police officer role? And I would say you're probably better off focusing on one, and focus on the one that you feel at this stage of the game you're most suited to. So if you feel that you need to acquire a little bit more employment experience and life experience, then certainly Special Constable might give you that, and do that for a few years and then consider applying to become a police officer. But if you feel at this stage that you are competitive and ready to apply to become a police officer, then why not focus on that and show us your commitment to that? So I would say pick one or the other and really focus on that and show us your commitment, and do that self-assessment questionnaire and really objectively decide, am I ready right now or not?
So somebody's asking a question about if the OPP has hired candidates with past drug use, or people that have learned from past mistakes, or does it automatically blacklist them? So I did mention earlier about having a balanced portfolio. So in other words, we're not looking for a perfect candidate, because there's no perfect candidate. Everybody has different levels of competitiveness, different experiences, life experiences, and have made different choices in their life. There's certain criterias and standards that all police services in Ontario must follow. Those are held closely to the police services. So there are certain things that can automatically disqualify you from the process. We don't share those. But can people be hired with any negative things that happened in the past? Yes. It'll depending what it is, how long ago it was, the frequency, and it's up to us as an organization or any police services to assess that and see if that would be a liability to the organization, that a candidate has been involved in a certain situation or incident or certain choices. It'll be up to us to decide if that's something that we can choose to be able to deal with as an organization. If you have anything in your past that you question, then maybe you distance yourself from there, make some other choices. Sometimes I think of the association concern. Maybe when you're younger, you hung out with the wrong crowd, but you've made a conscious decision to part ways with those people, and a number of years have gone by, you've changed your circle of friends, and your life's different than what it was. So things like that. So yes, depending what it is, you can still get hired. It doesn't automatically take you out, but there are certain elements that would disqualify you from the process. But that'll be up to us to decide. And the other thing I always tell people at the beginning of interviews, that any information you provide to us at any stage in the process, we verify that information. So when we do assessments of your file, if we find out anything about you, particularly negative things where you had a chance at different stages to disclose it and you have not, that may affect your application. In other words, you omitting to tell us, or we've had people lie about certain incidents. Now we're getting into an integrity piece, and that sometimes is a bigger problem, the actual incident that you're trying to not disclose or cover up. So just be honest, own things that you've done in the past, and let us decide if it's something we can work with or not.
Question here regarding international EPOs, or experienced police officers, and what you need to do to qualify. So if you're an international police officer, then certainly one of the first things you need is to, the same as anyone applying for a position for a police officer, is you either have to have your Canadian citizenship or be a permanent resident. And so you would have to obtain that. If you get your permanent residency, then there's no waiting time after that. You can apply right away. But I think that's one of the first things that comes to mind, is that you would need to be able to satisfy one of those two requirements. And then for more information in terms of what would make you competitive at that stage, I really recommend you just go to opp.ca and look at under careers. And we have all of the information in terms of what we require from experienced police officers when it comes to applying.
Okay. So I think this question might be somewhat directed to me. It's asking about the vision requirements, and they've read it's 2020, but they often see officers with glasses. Is the vision requirement accurate? So to pass the vision test as an applicant, it's 2020 corrected, 2040 uncorrected. Once you're with the service, as you get older, and I am older, my vision has changed, and I now wear glasses, and I didn't when I started 27 years ago. So it's an application requirement and not a continuous service requirement from there, unless there's something, a drastic change that would be a health and safety issue, that would be a case-by-case thing to deal with. But outside of that, regular prescription changes, it's for applicants. 2020 corrected, 2040 uncorrected. I just want to put in a quick little word. Somebody has mentioned, when I talked about, I was kind of tooting our horn with the OPP. Somebody has written down here they have some civilian positions experience. It says OPP is a great organization to work for. I started in CDE, which are civilian data entry, where they type in the officers' reports from the roads, and have recently moved up to CPIC, and I have been enjoying the job and the people I work with. I highly recommend applying. So it's not just us here in uniform recruitment selling the OPP. There's a lot of people within the organization that would gladly have you apply in different roles. And sometimes those civilian roles will help you gain some experience in the meantime until you're competitive enough for uniform recruitment, whether that be data entry, it could be special constable, it could be our auxiliary program. The auxiliary program is volunteer. The other roles are paid positions, but sometimes those can give you a bit of a leg up in the way of experience, getting to know the organization, and we get to know a little bit about you as well within the organization. So those things are interested and good to look at to make yourself more competitive.
Just a question around fitness. So we did cover off about needing to pass level 7 in the 20-meter shuttle run as a minimum requirement, and that is a requirement that you have to demonstrate several times through our process. But the very first time being when you apply, before we'll assess your application, you have to demonstrate that you can reach level 7. And then a part 2 to that question, do you need to achieve 75% in the fitness pin test as well? So for those who aren't familiar with the Ontario Fitness Pin, that's 4 components. It's made up of a 2.4 kilometer run. There are push-ups, there's a core endurance portion, and then flexibility, a sit and reach. And so in adding all 4 of those components up, we do like to see a minimum of 75% on the pin test as well. And so that's something that we'll assess on your fitness logs. Ideally, you'll be testing yourself on the fitness pin once a week. And the reason why that's so important is that typically if you struggle in the fitness pin components, then generally we'll see that carry over into the 20-meter shuttle run as well, and struggling with attaining level 7. They tend to go along with each other, particularly because the fitness pin includes that 2.4 kilometer run. So ideally, when you're training and doing your fitness logs, you're focusing on both of those and having a well-rounded fitness routine that includes strength training, cardio endurance. And so we like to see all of those pieces working together. So yeah, 75% is kind of the marginal passing score. The same way level 7 on the shuttle run is just a passing score. It doesn't necessarily make you competitive, but it is a pass. And why that's so important is when you go off to the police college, you have to be able to pass the fitness component there. And so the stronger you are going into that, the less stress and pressure you're going to feel when you're at the police college. That means you can focus more on your studies. You can focus more on everything else that you're learning. and there just won't be as much stress and pressure related to the fitness side of the house, because you know that you've got that squared away and you're really solid in that area. So you'll be thanking yourself for applying when you know that your fitness is really strong.
So two things. So is 36 too old to apply? No, it is not. There is there's an age limit. You have to be 18 years old. Other than that, there are no other limits. A few years back, pre-pandemic, I interviewed, and this person got on and was 52 years old. And I think, Marisol, you came across one recently that was about that age too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So there's people in there that have been hired in their 50s, wide range from their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. We've hired people. If you're qualified, that'll work. Somebody was asking, which one was I jumping to? Oh, I lost it. No. Oh, yes, the equivalency. So if you have studied any post-secondary outside of the country, you're required to submit an equivalency, so we know what that transfers over to Canadian learning. So through our frequently asked questions, there's a link to the different organizations that we will accept for that equivalency. And so WES is one of those, and that has to be submitted with your transfer. So you submit your transcript from whatever school, and if it comes from out of country, then submit the equivalency that goes with that, and we'll see what that's transferable to into Canadian learning, and we'll be able to use that to assess some of that ability to learn that we're looking for. Marisol, I don't know if you want to grab one more, and then I'll wrap up from there.
Sure. So I'll grab the one at the top here. Someone's asking where they can book a prep test with the OPP, and we don't have any prep tests available right now. So do follow us on social media so that if at some point we are offering any testing, then you'll know about it. But at this time, we're not offering that testing. So I recommend, again, just doing your fitness logs, testing yourself on the shuttle run to be sure you're getting the level 7. Combining that with strength training and fitness pin testing to be certain that you're a well-rounded candidate when it comes to your fitness.
All right. So to any candidates or potential candidates that are looking to get into applying to uniform recruitment for a position with constable, or have been through the process and need to revisit things, we are on our website at opp.ca/careers. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have frequently asked questions on our website. And through all that, there's a self-assessment tool that you can find when you download our application. See what the application's like, see what kind of documents you have to provide. It's all in there. There's no commitment if you download an application. Just go and have a look at it. Follow us on social media. Try to attend either a virtual session or come in person and meet us. We'd be happy to see you at some point. And we can't take all the questions today, but please check in. There's different sessions every week for the Ask Me Anything sessions. There's lots of stuff going on. Keep your eyes and ears open for the REACH program. I may have missed everything, but I mentioned a whole bunch there. So thank you, Marisol, and thank you everybody for listening, and good luck with your process.
Thanks, everyone. Best of luck.
Take care.